Hello and welcome to Maxum Foods Inside Track. Hope you all had a wonderful Easter. I know some are still on school holidays as we speak, but yeah, I hope it was a great long weekend. Let's have a look and see what's happening in the dairy industry. Having a look at whole milk powder. So yeah, a flat result last night on the GDT. The futures market did have it pinned for a 3 to 5% decrease. However, it did perform better than expected. Some good February numbers, milk numbers out of New Zealand, so supply has been strong. However, demand did hold up. We're still seeing a lot of volatility in those markets. We couldn't really pinpoint any market performing better than the other, so a good even spread of demand. In terms of a wider outlook for whole milk powder, yeah, it's still extremely volatile with supply chain globally. So yeah, it is an interesting time and a very uncertain market over the next 3 to 6 months for whole milk. Having a look at skim milk powder, so we look on a global scale. US seems to be having the biggest impact on the globe. If we look at the US, supply conditions have been strained. A lot of that skim milk being diverted to MPC production because of that heavy demand for protein. So yeah, there hasn't been an abundance of skim in the US. Global implications on that is leaving the global market dry of skim supply, therefore pricing still firm. For the next 3 to 6 months, although we have seen some sentiment of skim easing off, it does look to be continued strong demand and prices to remain quite firm into the winter months. Having a look at butterfat, so butterfat continues to be the most volatile of the dairy commodities. This was again displayed last night on the auction with a decrease in both AMF and butter and 82% butter. So we did see a significant increase over the last 3 months on AMF pricing, reaching a 5-year high, but then that correction last night. So very hard to pick in terms of AMF and any real market direction. Demand is still strong in pockets of the globe. If you look in the US, we saw a spike on the CME. However, pricing has calmed down and supply still seems abundant. In the EU, supply seems reasonable, so pricing has flattened out there as well. Australia and New Zealand, yeah, it really is quite hard to read, and yeah, obviously with the continued volatility of global supply chain all around the world, yeah, it is hard to see any clear market direction up or down for butterfat. Similar story to cheese. Look on a global scale, some good supply out of the US and plenty of US cheese on the global market, which is putting pressure on pricing. EU did show some good signs early on in the calendar year, with January and February some good demand and increase in Gouda and cheddar pricing. However, that has started to ease and it has become a bit more of a buyer's market in the EU side of things. If you look at Australia and New Zealand, yeah, demand remains consistent and is holding up. The cost of living pressures, etc., it's still holding up well against that. However, yeah, we do see a bit of a bearish outlook for cheese on a global scale in the next 3 to 6 months. Finishing off with whey and proteins, yeah, similar story. Don't want to sound like a broken record, however, yeah, that sweet whey and that competition for whey solids continues. So sweet whey pricing is very firm at the moment, some good global demand and supply diminished. And then on the proteins, yeah, on the whey protein isolate and whey protein concentrate, still a very strong market. Demand outstripping supply. We do see the EU coming into season, however, there just doesn't seem to be the capacity globally, and it looks as though that dynamic will continue and those prices will remain strong for the foreseeable future. Thanks very much for listening to today's Inside Track. I hope you have a great fortnight. Look after yourself and one another.